Good afternoon, everybody. Today we have a pretty interesting chat. The main topic will be the future of mobility, and one of the the outcomes that will probably come out that the future of mobility is something that, in a certain way, is strictly related to the concept of personalization, of growing personalization of services. To discuss about this topic, today I have a very special guest. Is Davide Cervellin. Davide Cervellin, hi Davide. Davide
Hi,
is
Alberto.
the Chief Data and Marketing Officer at Telepass. Telepass, Davide will explain definitely more, is the company that Autostrade per l'Italia spun off a few years ago to focusing on a specific business line. Davide has a very interesting background. He's Italian, but he spent large part of his life abroad, working not on traditional established companies, mostly in emerging tech companies. The last of them was Booking.com, if I'm not wrong. You were working from Amsterdam, and prior to that, you were in London. So before starting and introducing our conversation on the specific topics, it probably could be interesting, Davide, to go through a bit on your background, to explain what brought you to Telepass and Autostrade per l'Italia, what has been your personal journey. So give us some background. I think that's interesting to be shared.
Sure. Thank you very much, Alberto. Thank you for having me. So about myself, I guess, as you said, currently I'm the Chief Data and Marketing Officer for Telepass. And prior to that, I was living abroad. I spent 5 years in London working for eBay and PayPal. And also the last year and a half, I was in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, working for Booking.com. What brought me back to Telepass, I guess, is that I was missing my country, first and foremost. After so many years abroad, I think I've seen a lot of things. And we often complain about our country, and therefore some of us leave trying to seek greener grass somewhere else. Truth is, there are some very good things abroad, but also after a few years, you realize that some of the things that you took for granted while you were here, they become things that you miss. And so I was looking for an opportunity to come back, and Telepass, which I believe we'll talk about during this hour quite a bit, offered me that. And so I'm very glad to be back and help Telepass achieve their vision. On top of that, I'm also involved in the startup scene. My years abroad have brought me opportunities to collaborate as an advisor, as a coach for a few startups. And also, I'm an author. Essentially, in 2018, I published a book called Office of Cards, which is a book that summarizes my experience in large companies and how to thrive in large companies. I guess there is a lot of literature, a lot of media talking about if people want to be happy, they have to be their own bosses, they have to create their own startups, and so on. And that is true in some cases. However, for many people, working life is the life of a large organization in which they can have a career, they can have responsibilities and duties and moments of joy and moments of sadness. And I tried to capture what I thought and what I learned, what I think works in order to be successful and have a successful career and have an impact in the world through a large organization. And also,
And what are the outcomes of Office of Cards? Because again, what is again the top 3 tips that you might share after again having played both roles in a large organization,
yes,
smaller growing organizations? What are your takeaways?
yes.
The partial
Well, I
takeaways,
guess
because I think you're learning something every day. I believe.
exactly. The more I talk about it, the more I learn. And actually, together with the book, I also have a podcast in which I interview people, just like this instance, and I learn all the time. I guess top 3 tips that I would give to people are 3 of my rules, actually, because the book is divided in rules. I would say one of them is play the long game, which is do not seek for instant gratifications, do not seek for the immediate return of your investment, but always think about what is there to gain for you or for the company in the long run by building relationships, by making investment decisions of all sorts. The second one, I guess, is a point about ownership. One of the hashtags that I use is own your life, which means essentially do not blame other people. Focus on what you can control. Focus on what you
in
can
Italy
influence.
probably we should learn a bit more, right?
Yes, yes. We are a country of, we call it in Italy, tifosi, right? We are a country of fans and people who think like life is like a football match. So we all love or all hate. It's not really like that. I think there's a lot of value in the gray between the black and the white. And the third one, I guess.
If you're talking about soccer, for me, it's only black and white. Sorry for that.
Okay.
I don't see any additional colors and shades. Sorry.
Yeah, can imagine. The third one
See, I have
is
also the posture when I'm talking, just to.
yes, you go with your chest out, puffing up.
Oh, again, but being a big gobbo, I need to also to look.
Yes. The third one is something that I called perception is reality, and this is a very important thing to understand. Which is, and this is very useful in my marketing job, which is what people think is all that matters. It's not what is, because there's no absolute truth, right? The way we see things is just subjective, and so even if I'm telling you something with a very clear intent, and I'm sure that I'm explaining myself in a very clear way, you may be perceiving something else. And so the only thing that matters when I have a relationship with someone is not what I'm saying, but it is what you're hearing, right? And so I need to focus on making sure in a large organization that my messages are clear. I need to craft my stories in a way that is beyond misunderstanding, that people can only see the things that I'm talking about. And if there is a misunderstanding, I go back to own your life, which is, it is my job to fix your understanding, right? So it's not, oh, it's your fault because you don't get me. No, it is my fault because I'm not clear enough. So I guess this is just 3 rules, but the book is full of other rules and other principles that I found very effective, and it helped me get to where I am, which I think is a good place. So I hope that they can help other people.
No, I think it's very good points, and again, from my perspective, coming from the startup world, as you really, on the one hand, we like the entrepreneurial attitude, entrepreneurial life, because give you a lot of freedom, give you a lot of the ability to build without too many rules, without too many constraints, without too many processes. So that is the beauty of being an entrepreneur, being a startup. On the other hand, specifically in times like this, when you're really I saw that I was looking at this data this morning that we're talking about, that probably 60% of European startups are going to lay off people or temporarily furlough, lay off them. And so you can really understand that on the other way around, when you are working in a large organization, you have your goals, you are dedicated, but still there is a larger network of support that you can rely on. Beauty or less beauty sometimes, a lot of politics involved. It's something you don't like and you are really difficult to grasp and appreciate. But in the end, you can plan your activities with definitely your safety net, that is the large organization. When you're working in smaller organizations that are really living on the edge, you can really see that sometimes it's really tough decision to be done on a daily basis, and situations like this are really, really complicated to manage. And so that's going back to your book recommendation. Just go back immediately into your life, and there's an impact that is sometimes is simply too much to bear. Specifically because if you had the experience of starting a company and being at the top position of a company, a startup company, you are really a lonely person, because you can't talk to anybody, because you can't say, okay, guys, I don't know if we have cash next month. And you can't say that because immediately the people will start leaving. So we need to keep your face. And to the point, you're just talking with your dog and say, okay, what's what I'm doing tomorrow, what I can do here. And you're really, as I've seen something that sometimes I do, I'm working as sometimes for many CEOs, founders, as a sort of person that can talk freely to say, okay, I have this problem. And then again, also this connection, this level is important, because they need someone to talk to also to check what can be done and what cannot be done. Again, but I think it's interesting. So interesting reading that I recommend. So good job and keep up doing, because I think it's not the final book. I think you have to write a continuous learning, as we discussed. So it's continuous sharing this kind of experience. But it's interesting also to see someone moving from top company like Booking.com, at least up to last month, was probably one of the most desired place to work, and moving to something that is probably a bit more less cool. That might be probably Autostrade per l'Italia Group.
Well, I might make a
comment. Yes.
I may make a comment about this. I agree with you. It seems less cool from the outside, but having been in both places, I can tell you Telepass is a lot cooler than Booking, to be very honest.
It's a problem of perception again.
Yeah.
Some works, some places are definitely perceived as cooler than others, but at the end, reality sometimes is not exactly that. In terms of perception, that's the people say, "Oh, I was looking at Booking.com, PayPal, cool." And I see in Silicon Valley when companies like Google are no longer perceived as cool anymore, because it's an old-fashioned company, Google.
Yeah.
Now you see old-fashioned again.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to business. Sorry for the interruption.
Yes.
And Telepass, I think it would be interesting also for the people that are listening to us to understand a bit the story of Autostrade per l'Italia, Telepass.
Yes.
Can you help us to position also internationally? What's, again, for Italians pretty notable, but for the other people probably might require some additional, let's say, information.
Sure. So Telepass next month, actually, in a few weeks, Telepass is going to be 30. It's going to become 30. Is a company started in 1990 for the World Cup, and the first Telepass payment was made in Rome, from Rome North to Rome South, and it was a campaign built off the back of an idea, built off the back of the World Cup in 1990. And the idea was to reduce the line and save time to people when they go in and out of tolling stations. As you said, it started as a business unit of Autostrade per l'Italia, and it's basically been that for 27 years, so until 2017. Because in the meantime, a few years back, it became an independent company, but still the mission of the company was just tolling, so taking care of the payment of the highway. That's it. But in 2017, the company started diversifying its business. It changed CEO, and the new CEO brought a wind of ideas and new things that could help Telepass be not just a tolling payment provider, but remove the word tolling, a payment provider, right? However, it is in our DNA to take care of one thing and one thing mostly, which is mobility. So what we did in the last 3 years was build an ecosystem of mobility services under the hat of a new brand, which we call Telepass Pay, which is an umbrella brand whereby you can access and then pay mobility services beyond the tolling. So the tolling is there. It is our flagship product. It is our history. It's the thing that we know how to do better than anybody else. But at the same time, we've added opportunities for people, for example, to book sharing mobility. So, for example, in Milan, in Rome, in Turin, in other cities, you can book a scooter, you can book an electric scooter, you can book a bike, you can book all these sustainable, which is one thing that we care a lot about, mobility services, helping you go from point A to point B, even within urban mobility. We also did partnerships with the major taxi providers, so you can also book a taxi with Telepass and pay. Of course, we also made partnerships with other companies that take care of mobility in other instances. For example, you can buy tickets for the ferry, for the main ferry providers to go to the islands of Italy. We also have Caronte, which is the ferry that goes from Calabria to Sicily. So if you move from point A to point B, we strive to have a service to give you the option to move in a way that is sustainable, green, clean, And right now, it's actually, these words are very important because of the coronavirus. We also try to not make you touch anything, right? Which is important. There's no exchange of paper, of credit cards, or anything. You give us your bank account like you did with the traditional tolling, and then you can pay the whole thing without ever touching anything, which is a very strong statement that we're making right now because it's very relevant to people.
So the fact that I think one of the unique differentiators Telepass has is the access to the bank account. That again is not trivial for many, because again, this area of intermediating payment service, mobility service is super crowded and will become overly crowded in the next incoming years. But the fact that you have this, the aborigine, we have the access to the bank account, make your service a lot more stick, something that is really difficult to be removed. I think it's quite a unique differentiator you have.
Yes, it's something that we are very, very proud of. We are very trusted by our customers. They give us the keys to their bank account, and they trust us to take the right amount of money at the end of their highway journey. So the same happens when they do every other type of journey. For some of our products, actually having access to the bank account allow us to give some money back to the customer. For example, we have a ski pass product that, thanks to the bank account relationship, allow us to give people the best rate. So for example, you ski, like in London, when you do with the Oyster card, it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. When you ski and then you hit a cap that triggers a better rate, because maybe you're doing 1.5 days or whatever combination, we just take the lesser amount. So we save you money, right? Of course, we are very aware that having access to the bank account is a huge responsibility in terms of trust. So we are very, 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 and I say it 3 times just to stress it, protective of our customer privacy, of the data of our customers. We do not share anything with anybody. We do not give access to our list of customers or to any third party for marketing, communication, whatever. We could make a ton of money if we did that, but we are never going to do that because we know our customers trust us with their data, and we respect this so much that there's no way we're going to go for a quick buck. And like I said at the beginning, we play the long game. We want to be in a relationship in which the customer is happy about using Telepass for every mobility need that they have, and no way that we're giving in their data for a quick buck that we could make with a third party.
So going back to the story just told, I think is very, very interesting. So just to wrap it up in a very, very short journalistic way, so pardon in advance if I'm cutting some corners. So substantially, you started with a payment product for, let's say, long range mobility. That was the original Telepass that we had and I had since the beginning. Afterwards, you substantially, currently you are diversifying in a certain way into 2 directions. One is the payment, so you are moving from other paying other kind of things. And the other one is you're extending the concept of mobility, mostly to urban mobility and alternative mobility, sustainable mobility. So I think this is the 2 directions that you have taken looking at your evolution in the past few years, if I got it right. So the next immediate question is, how do you see Telepass in the next 5 to 10 years? Again, if you look forward-looking, where you see yourself as a company in 10 years? What are the strategic directions that you are taking? Part of them you already mentioned, but it will be interesting to know.
Yeah. So, I mean, with Telepass Pay, we are a 3-year-old company. So it's like a startup, I mean, we already have 500,000 customers, which is a lot. Still, we have a long way to go. We really want to be ubiquitous. So there is like I said, the key word is an ecosystem. That's what we're building. We are building an ecosystem, which is open for any innovation in mobility that there is. So if there is a new way of moving, I don't know, hoverboards are invented and then they become a thing. We want them to be available in our platform, and we want people to have access to them and pay them the same way they pay the highway. Seamless, contactless, green. So there are 2 answers to your question. The first one is we have to scale what we built so far. Okay, there is a long way to go, like I said, in order for us to become really top of mind in all of the things that we offer. And so we want to make sure that people have access to our services, and through our platform, they can get, the bike, the scooter, they can unlock the mobility, the way they want to move, right? And they can do it with us. And then we are adding a lot of other services because the world is moving, mobility is changing. And so we are launching new partnerships with other partners. Like I said, in order to provide optionality for our customers, we want them to be able to choose the way they want to move. We are also we are creating and launching a new device, we call it OBU, which is onboard unit. It's a short for onboard unit, the thing that you have in your car that bips when you go under a tolling station. We're creating a new version of that, which has voice recognition and has more sensors than the one that we have today, that gives us access to essentially location, and it gives us access to for example, unlocking things when we know that you are in a certain place. It allows us to have a conversation with the customer that is relevant and contextual. That's what we really want. But again, like I said before, we are extremely careful with the privacy of our customers. So our box, while it will be able to talk, it will not be able to overhear or eavesdrop what you're saying. So it's not like a Siri box or a Google box that is listening all the time, so that it can understand when you say, "Hey Siri" or "Okay Google." We're not listening. So if you want to talk to the box, you have to press a button. So we're not listening. We don't care about what you say when you are in your car. But if, for example, you want, and again, it's a choice for the customer, we will be able to, for example, unlock a refilling station when you just drive through. So when you go into your, for example, Q8 fuel station, and then we know that you are there, we can say, "Hey, do you want a gas? Yes, give me 50 euros. And then you can just unlock your pump and then go refill your car. This is, again, a choice for the customer. They can just say, "I don't want you to tell me that. I can do it with my credit card or with my phone, or using Telepass Pay or whatever other payment method." But this is one of the things that we can do. Other things that we can do with that is, for example, when we detect, we're launching a partnership now with a company called Arval for long-term rental for cars. And within the cars that you rent with Arval, there will be a smart box that essentially allow us to also know when the engine key is off. So if the engine is off, what happens is that we can tell you, "Hey, you are in the city center, the key is off." So we detect that you are within the range of, I don't know, zone 1 for the parking. And we can say, "Hey, do you want to pay the parking?" "Yes, 2 hours." That's it. You don't have to go look for a thing in which you put coins or whatever that you do today. That is old school. We want to make the life of the customer seamless. We want to save time, because then you just begin your payment when you're still in the car. You don't have to go there and then go back and then put some kind of printed note in your car, which is not sustainable. It's a lot of paper that is wasted, and also a lot of rubbish, because a lot of people throw these things on the floor. It's not good. So again, it's about making the life of our customers easy. It's about being there for them when they need to do something that we know how to do very well.
In these new services that will be enabled, and so in the process, how much is the contribution from inside the corporation, the traditional R&D? How much is the contribution of the world of startups, what technically is called open innovation? So can you elaborate a bit more what's the role of open innovation in Telepass, some examples?
Yes. So we care a lot about startups, because we believe they are the way in which companies can really increase the speed of growth that they have, right? It's about, there is a word that my boss, the CEO, uses, which is contamination. He uses it in a good way. Nowadays, it's a dangerous word to use, but in this case, in general cases,
also you see that in these days, also word like positive is perceived no longer as something good. So it's we need really to pay attention to what we say. And so contamination, positive, at this time we definitely need to use it with a bit more caution.
Yeah. So just I mean, what I'm talking about is culture. Right? Culture is not something you can change overnight. Culture is something that you have to change very slowly, very delicately. And the best way that I know how to do that is by exposing a culture to another culture, so that this contamination, that's why we use this word, because it's about exposure, essentially can happen. And you can see that something that you didn't believe was possible, think about speed of execution, think about, the things that startups are famous for versus large companies, in which if you want to change something, it's 6 months and a startup can do it in 1 month, for example. How can they do that? Well, the best way is not to tell people this from the inside. So I'm the CEO and say, hey, why does it take you 6 months when that company did it in a month? The best way to do it is to show them. And so what we do as Telepass, what we have done in the past 3 years, is invest heavily, directly and indirectly, and I'm going to explain that in a second, in the startup world, by bringing in our fold companies like Orbi, which is a urban mobility company that allows people to have access to a lot of, sharing mobility and
Did you acquire them, right?
Yes. Yes. They are part of Telepass Group. In fact, the Telepass is not a company, it's not just a company, it's actually a group made up of several companies. We also invested in a startup called Washout, which is a company that allows you to rent a washer that comes to your place or to your office, wherever you are, and washes your car. They can wash the car outside, they can also wash the car inside. For now, inside is only if you're there to give them the keys. But again, think about Telepass Next, think about the box that we put in the car. We can also unlock the car for you. So in the future, there is also the possibility to have someone coming in your car and wash it. Of course, we need to figure out the safety of all this, right? But clearly, it's a possibility. Technology is not the problem in that case. The problem is just to make it work and to make it a good experience for the customer. And so
on this specific point of the unlocking of the car, that I think is probably one of the hottest topic. Again, I'm discussing with many players, because again, you know that is difficult, specifically when you are talking about vehicles produced by third parties. Again, you are a provider, and the cars produced by the Daimler of the world, the Volkswagen of the world, the car producer. So technically, for a car producer, the unlocking of the car is something that is manageable. While you are a third party, is quite complicated, because again, it requires to get access to some specific part of the car that are not so accessible. So what's your view over there? Because I think this is one of the big topics. May allow, imagine for you mentioned your partnership with Arval, so meaning unlocking cars, carpooling, all these kind of services required is the opportunity to unlock the car in a safe way. And so what's your view there? What's the technology direction that you're foreseeing here?
I think it's about, so we are using this partnership with Arval in order to test, because like everything, I don't need to tell you, right? What works is what the customer loves, right? That's the only thing that works. You can do whatever you want on the white paper, on Excel spreadsheets. The business case says that you're going a hockey stick up north, to the far right of the chart, whatever. But the thing is, it only works and scales if customers love it. And so what we are trying to do with Arval is just an experiment in which, well, not just an experiment, of course, it's a full partnership, but what I'm trying to say is we are very cognizant of the data that we are going to generate with this, and that we're going to use to make sure that we understand what parts of these opportunities, not just talking about unlocking the car, but I'm talking about all the services that we're going to offer, which of these things are going to be loved by our customers, which of these things are going to be so loved by our customers that they are going to be willing to talk about them with their friends, to brag about the fact that they have it and their friends don't. This is what makes the difference between a great product and a good product. And we strive to be great. So what we're trying to do is, and that's also part of my job because I'm chief marketing and data. So the data part is the part in which I'm responsible for understanding what customers love through data, looking at how many times they click, how many times they do one thing, how many times they don't do one thing, and so on, so that we understand what are the things that stick with our customers. And with this, going back to your previous question, when you want to try different things and see what sticks, startups are a good way. Collaborating with startups is a very good way to offer with a relatively small investment, a new product or a new service to the customer and see if it sticks. So Washout, which is one of the examples, started as a pilot. He said, hey, we think it would be cool. It would be a product that fits in our ecosystem because people who have a car want to wash it. That's not a big discovery, but the offer that Washout was giving was something new, a new service, like washing the car on demand when it's in your garage, when it's at the office, when it's parked in the city center, just because we detect that you, for example, made a 4-hour, you just paid for 4-hour stop, a ticket for 4 hours. So we know there is a washer nearby. We know they have time. So why don't we just tell you, hey, you just parked the car. Do you want it clean when you come and pick it up? If it's dirty, you might just say yes. It's one click. And then someone comes there, washes your car. You come back after your shopping and the car is quickly clean. So this is something that we started like this. And then we saw that it was a very successful partnership. It was going very good. And so we invest more in the company, right? And so these are the companies.
So did you invested in Washout, right?
We invested in Washout, and we are thinking about increasing because it's working, right? The customers love it.
What's the stage again? Only don't share information that are not confidential. But what's the current state of Washout? If you can remember, how many people they are? So how much did you invested? What's the stage of the company in the process?
Yeah, so I don't remember exactly what is public and what isn't. So I will
ballpark figures are always okay. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's a marketplace company. So of course, the company is quite small because of course the washer is not an employee, but there is a marketplace dynamic going on over there. And our stake was about 5%, 5 or 6% before, but we decided to increase. It will be announced soon, so stay tuned for that.
Okay.
It's going to happen. No, not asking. And if the CEO is listening to me, he's free to share whatever he wants, but I just tread lightly on this topic.
Again, it's a partnership that you started with a small stake just to test the water with a pilot, and then you invested, and now you're considering to make
that is the spirit. One thing that I care about saying is we are an industrial partner. So we look for industrial partnerships. We are not looking for like VC kind of relationship in which we come in and we are waiting for the exit to happen. And we're not in for the money. We are in for our customers. So only if the company that we talk to is willing to think about this relationship as they keep growing their business and we keep offering that business to our 7 million customers, or otherwise it's not going to work, right? So this is very important. And with this spirit, we do a lot of scouting of startups through collaborations with shows like Be Heroes, for example. It's a program very known in Italy for startup. It's like a reality show of startups. We also partner with LV Group, with Elis, with Economy App. I mean, there are lots of partnerships that we do so that we use companies whose job is to scout and validate the quality of the people and the quality of the idea and the quality of the startup. And we are there giving them money to do that so that we can choose the best startup that fits our portfolio of services that we want to offer our customers. So if you think about it from the startup standpoint, it's actually great because if they have a business that have anything to do with mobility, we have almost 7 million customers waiting for them, right? It's actually too many for some startups. So we can promise a lot of growth. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, that's the typical assumption that lays behind startup corporate collaboration or open innovation at large.
Yeah.
The actual problems, again, as you know, we work with many industrial leaders to help them to identify the right startups in an international perspective. Again, we started this scouting startup probably since the past 5 to 7 years, pretty early in the game. Again, typically the problems, again, the problem is obviously is there because again, startups needs customer base. We already have the customer base. You're looking for innovative solution is win-win. Again, it's pretty obvious. The devil is in the implementation most of the time because on the one hand, large corporations are pretty slow to move and to act, because again, you cannot put on the market something that doesn't work, or works sometimes, or works most of the times again. So you really need mature solution, and most of the startups unfortunately are not at that level, and to bring them at that level takes time, and sometimes the opportunity just simply fade out. And so what we are seeing is that we are mostly, in our experience, focusing the startup corporate collaboration, what we call the scale-ups. So are started already mature, that already a product are deployment grade, and that can really be adopted by large corporations. And so this is number one. And unfortunately, in Italy, being a still young, thriving ecosystem, there are not that many solutions at that level. And so that's why most of the scouting is done currently internationally, not because we don't like Italian startups, or because the ones that are ready to act are pretty just a small group. And the second problem that we face is that on the corporate side, there is the usual corporate world that is slow to act, slow to move, a lot of politics. Then legals coming on board, then it takes the contract design. The contract design might take 3 months, something that might time. I have also a situation when from the decision to move and the start of the pilot, sometimes it might take also 18 months.
Yes.
Okay, fine, it's interesting. Then we go to the legal, and then there is the finance, there is this concern, and there's an international reorganization inside the corporates, and then you start with the various, again, it's a usual mess that you know that you're way better than me. And so that is the problem that most of the time doesn't allow that this big promise win-win opportunity, startup corporate collaboration, simply doesn't happen, because or you're not ready, or you are not ready to work with different kind of actors. And I was watching Ford versus Ferrari, Le Mans 66, and I think there is, if you look at the beginning of the dialogue between the two characters, that is the driver and Shelby, you see they say, "Are you really sure that you want to do this in Ford? The mighty Ford? Forget about it. Will never happen." And that's again, it's a bit exaggerated, but sometimes probably. What's your takeaway here? What are the typical problems that you see from the implementation perspective?
I've heard that type of sentence in several occasions. Going back to one comment that we just made before, I think this is what Telepass is perceived to be, but trust me, is not. From the inside, I can tell you, we go from some crazy deck that we might have seen from a startup to actually making an offer in weeks, not months. And then we start working together in days after we sign papers. Again, it's about, it's scrappy. It's about pasting some scrappy experience over there. But that's how you see what sticks. Because if it's scrappy, but inherently it is what the customers want, the customers will make you see that by trying to do things and then complaining about the fact that it doesn't work. The more they complain, the more they care, right? And so you can use these things in order to say, okay, we decided to do that, but we actually have to pause that because our customers love this so much that we should invest more on this. And so our roadmap is, again, for my job, frustratingly so sometimes, is very fluid, right? Because we have a roadmap, we lock the roadmap, and then sometimes we observe, and then the coronavirus comes, and then some new technology appears, whatever, and we change everything. So it's a lot more similar to a startup. I've actually done an interview quite recently in which this came out. I just said, Telepass sometimes feels like a Series C startup. We are still a startup. We're looking for a lot of money.
You are a grown-up startup. But actually, you started 3 years ago as an independent company. You are not the site. I was not referring to you. I was referring to most of our large corporation we work with. Honestly, large animals are slow to move again.
I agree. Without mentioning any names, but some of the companies that I worked with have had a lot of trouble changing some core dynamics from within. and in the end, I mean, some of them are still suffering from things that they want to change but can't. And so this is quite frustrating in general. And that's the dichotomy. Or actually, if I'm talking to startup people right now, and I try to put myself in their shoes, and I do it when I coach them. I said, be careful who gives you money, right? Because if the person giving you money has an industrial approach and wants to help you grow, but wants you to keep doing what you're doing, it's one thing. If the person giving you money is a company that acqui-hires you, that then takes you in the fold, then you have to follow their rules, right? So, like I said the word before, contamination can go both ways. You can have a startup contaminating a larger entity for good. That's what we're trying to do. But you can also have a larger company contaminating a startup in a bad way, where the startup loses its DNA. Essentially, it loses the reasons why it's being bought in the first place, which is very bad. So I think the name that comes to mind where this happens quite evidently all the time is Apple, right? Apple buys the companies so they can embed the service that the company has in their offering. That's what they do. So when Apple buys your company, you know that you become an Apple employee. You no longer are an employee of the company that you had, because within a year, they're going to integrate you in iOS. That's usually what they do. For software. For hardware, it's in the phone, right, or whatever. So that's not what we do. We do the opposite. We want the startup to thrive as a startup, right? And then we want them to give access to their services to our customers, which is just a link on a page. So it's not a lot of work to do.
It's a very good point. Again, it's one of the most complicated things to manage, and by the way, to rule it out, because again, there are different situations where you are making a move to a company because you perceive an immediate opportunity of integration. And at this point, the earlier you bring them on board, the better, but you have an immediate play. And then since you have an immediate play, it makes sense that you go to a full integration. You become part of the company. You probably can act as a contamination, being people coming from outside of the company integrating. So there will be a sort of cultural clash that at a certain point will help to evolve the cultural environment inside the corporation. Or there are other situations where you really want to exploit certain services, but theoretically it's better they stay separate from what you're doing, because if you bring them inside, you kill them. And but again, as you say, despite of social, when we want to work, this is black and white. In this situation, there is a lot of shades of gray in between, when it's really difficult to find the real solution. I have this discussion with many of our customers that are also trying to figure out which is the right mix to approach, how we should deal with companies. And it's a case-by-case analysis, and based on that, you take a situation. Because again, one of the other, and that's a good question, it's coming also from one of the comments. Let me show you here, and then I take this question also for asking my own question is, sometime in the world of innovation, we use the categorization is Horizon 1, Horizon 2, and Horizon 3. So there are some innovation that should immediately have a benefit for the company. So immediate integration, immediate impact on the P&L. Horizon 2 is probably something between 3 to 5 years. And then Horizon 3 is the company of the future. So a good example is Robert Bosch. Robert Bosch has a venture capital firm, and you see most of the investors are more likely position in the Horizon 3 part. So they are building the Bosch 10 years from now, not now. And so also the number of collaboration are very limited. So what's your approach? And this is a question coming from one of the listeners, say, okay, what's your long term for you? How do you see that?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, like I said, I'm a numbers guy. And so whenever we make significant investments, we want to have an idea when it's going to pay back. And it doesn't mean it has to pay back, right? It doesn't necessarily have to, for a specific investment, to be ROI positive. It can also be ROI negative, as long as we know, right? We can make informed decisions, because we have a lot of, our company is very profitable. Our EBIT is actually very, very high. And so we have a lot of cash to play with, despite, of course, our obligations for dividends and whatever. But let's forget about that. We just make a lot of cash. We are very effective at managing our costs. And so we make a lot of cash. So we could actually do a lot of things. And it's true that some of the things that we do have a negative ROI, but they are meant to fuel some growth in some other way. It could be awareness. It could be an investment in a company that we think it's going to pay back in 5 years, whatever. As long as you have a model that tells you why you're making a decision, then it's good. Because even if you make a mistake, you can go back to the reasons why you made a mistake and then learn something from it so you don't make it again. So if you think about our services, Telepass Pay, the whole venture about Telepass Pay, there are models that we use in order to look at the lift of the lifetime value of the customer, of course, because the more things you do, the more you spend in our ecosystem, the more money you're worth to us. And so, of course, we're trying to give something back to the customers so that they can try these services. In fact, we have a lot of campaigns where we give, for example, 10 euros back in fuel, which is free money. I mean, there's no way. My commission on fuel is very small. So you need to make a lot of fuel for me to make 10 euros back, right? A lot. But the point is not that. The point is
particularly at those time, I think it's something that
this time I'll never make it.
You have to pay someone to take the fuel.
Exactly. This time it's also difficult to use the 10 euros that I'm giving you. But the point is discovery. Like I said, we have an ecosystem. We have a lot of services, but we also have a brand that is very, very known for one thing, which is the tolling. So we need people to discover all the other things. And so what we do sometimes is put money on the table. That's a good thing for the customer. We give you money, no strings attached, because it's also entirely possible that you just take those 10 euros and then leave and then never do anything again. It does happen, right? But my job as a data officer in the company is just to make sure it doesn't. So to measure what is the price elasticity, what is the stickiness point, what is the churn of the customer, all these things that help me understand when you have become a habituated user of a specific service, so that essentially I don't need to tell you again, you just do it because it's your habit, like it is to just pay the highway going through the yellow line instead of the blue or the white one. So we look at investments that we make for companies in startups. First of all, like I said, we are industrial partners. So we are essentially creating a business unit when we buy a company, because that's what they do. And they have to keep doing it. So a very firm conversation that we have with founders is, if you want to make billions out of this company, I'm not the right investor for you, because that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for industrial partnership. I'm looking for you to keep doing what you're doing very well with the power of my brand and also the use of my money and also the coaching of the managers that Telepass can put at your disposal to help you not make the mistakes that typically young companies make. And I will give you access to my customers so that you can offer your services as part of the family, right? And this is something important. And so that's for life. When we look at other investments, of course, it depends. We have a lot of IT investments in technology and platforms and all the data things that I'm talking about. They require a lot of money for like architecture and then making the data available. And then we are moving away from traditional marketing to automated marketing. That's another huge investment in terms of technology, because if you want to go towards personalization, segmentation, and all these things, it means that yesterday, I was sending 6 million of the same email to every one of my customers. Today, I want to be able to send 6 million different emails. And if you want to do that with the same team size, you need a lot of technology, right? So that's the journey that we're going through today, because we want to make sure that we are relevant. And again, it's about respecting the customers. We do not want to abuse the trust that they gave us by giving us their email address, their phone number, or whatever. We want to just talk about things. Yes.
In anything related to artificial intelligence here, again, what's you're doing over here? Because again, that's quite an important.
So AI is at the base of our personalization strategy. So we are at the beginning right now of trying to move away from traditional marketing, going towards automated marketing. And automation is based on artificial intelligence. It means that there are going to be dynamic segments of customers based on what they do real time. And we are going to expose customers to different messages in different ways. It could be an email, it could be a text, it could be a notification, it could be a splash page in the app or whatever. And then we're going to power all these things with a machine learning algorithm that is going to teach us what are the things that work and what are the things that don't work. This is the beauty of a digital business in which you can, like I said before, see what sticks. So it's the power of statistics. And again, statistic, in order to work, you need to have a lot of customers. Thankfully, we do have that. And so we're just trying to make sure that we do not, if we have made the mistake of sending you some message that is not relevant to you, say, for example, we're talking about paying the car ownership tax and you don't own a car, that is a mistake. It can happen. My job is to make sure that it only happens once. So that if there is an algorithm that tells me that that email really was not relevant to you, it must not be sent again. And the next time I must talk to you about, for example, sharing mobility. Because you do not have a car, but you do move, you are my customer, it means you're using some of my services. And so maybe you're using an e-bike or a scooter, right? Then I talk to you about those. Then I'm going to give you €2 free. For example, one of the things that we are doing this year, unluckily right now nobody is using it, but in 2020, sharing mobility is free for every Telepass Pay customer for the full year. It's a huge investment that we're making. Why are we making it? Because we care about sustainable mobility, we care about clean mobility, we care about electric vehicles going around rather than cars, and because we want for people to find out, to discover this service. And sometimes people say, it's expensive, I have to sign up, I don't want to do it. No, you are a Telepass Pay customer, you can just unlock the scooter in front of you and it's going to be free for the full year. So we hope that when the coronavirus situation is going to, be south and be gone, people are going to be incentivized. Actually, yesterday, the mayor of Milan and the mayor of Rome have started talking about creating new bike lanes in the city centers and incentivizing people not to take the tube or the bus because they are very crowded, and to instead use sharing mobility, alternative ways to move. Well, it's free. If you are a Telepass Pay customer, it's actually free. So that's not an excuse not to do it.
There is a question, let me share to you, talking about new trends, circular economy. What's your take regarding circular economy?
We keep an eye on it. Right now, I think we are an ecosystem, so we are open to any idea that can allow our customers to have access to services that are relevant to them. And of course, a circular economy, within the umbrella of circular economy, you could think of several ways. Yeah. We are actually in talks with a few companies that could be called circular economy companies, because we want to explore whether it's possible for us to offer their services through our platform in one way or another. They could be a partner, they could be, we could buy them, or we could invest in them. It depends. But of course, as I said before, if we believe that this is what the customers want, we are going to go big on it, like we always do.
Perfect. Final remarks. Again, if you have to see the 1, 2, 3 top priorities for you and your company in the next incoming 2-3 years, what they should maybe be? Or the first one again, the 3 directions that are dictating your actions.
So I guess for my company, it's about, I guess, scaling on the things that work already. And so using data so that we can make these things scale cost effectively. There is a huge focus on sustainable mobility, so sustainability, and those 2 are for the company. For myself personally, I think it's relevance. I think Telepass has had, and particularly the CEO has had, a view ahead of its time on creating my role, because it was created for me. It wasn't there before. Chief Marketing and Data. You don't see a lot of these. Actually, I'm the only one that I know.
Actually, we are mapping all the chief new officer, and it's the first time that I find marketing and data. We have technology innovation, innovability, innovation and digital, but this is new, right? I have to add to my list.
And why is that? It is like this because the reason why we collect data for our customers is only so that we can give them better communications of our products so that we can serve them better. We do not sell data to third party. We do not send emails on behalf of other people. It's only stuff that we endorse. And in almost all the cases, it's only stuff that we own. So we know the service that we're offering. And so for me, the risk is when you have 7 million customers, it's also easy to be tempted by sending broadcast emails just for the sake of, if I send 6 million emails, I know that I'm going to sell 1,000 pieces, for example. And 1,000 of whatever, for me, it's a good number. And I'm saying no. So I'm actually trying to resist that temptation, because for those 1,000 sales, I would have upset 5,900,000 and whatever customers. That's not my job. My job is, if I sell 1,000 pieces, that has to be off the back of 1,000 emails. That's my objective. And so it's about relevance. It's about being there for our customers, understanding them, and serving them with the best content that we can actually offer. So relevance is the key word for me, I guess.
Okay, so I think this sounds like a good plan. So Davide, really thank you for the time. I really appreciate the conversation. I think there's been a lot of questions, a lot of people following up. So let's keep up the good job that you are doing, and let's keep up the conversation. We'll definitely keep a close eye on you and what you're doing with Telepass, and probably we'll definitely resume this conversation in the next incoming weeks and months. Hopefully, when the lockdown is completed, we can also probably meet in person. No handshakes. Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much, Alberto. Bye-bye.